How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Kuf Vav, Daf 106 of Masechta BavaMetzia. Friends, friends. Alright. Alright. Well, BavaMetzia. It's like these dafs recently have not been like super hard, maybe a little technical, but we're going to start on Daf Kufayim with Beis, 6, 7, 8 lines from the bottom or so at the Mishnah. Okay, so if somebody is being Makabla Sodim Chaver v'Ochla Chagov o Nishdifa. Okay, so back to sort of our exercise of, is it talking about Chacharus or is it talking about Kablonus? So this would be talking about Chacharus. Renting, right? So we're saying, so what happens? So somebody be'etzim is like renting a field from Reuben is renting a field from Shimon for a fixed price. But Pashit locusts came and Pashit ate everything. So now Chaval, meaning if it's a kablonus, if it's a sharecropping agreement, okay, so like he just has to give a percentage of the yield. So if there's no yield, there's no percentage. But when it comes to Chacharus, why does that feel like that's not right? Chacharus, right? That's what it's called, right? Chacharus. I don't know. For some reason, I'm like not. It's like the word is slipping me, but I think Chacharus. This rental thing. So he already committed to paying a certain amount, but there's no right. Chachir. Oh gosh, this is driving me crazy. One second. Chachirus. Okay, chachirus. So yeah, the thing is, chachirus is generally paid with produce. Chachirus is generally paid with produce, right? Meaning, so a rental. Oh gosh, 1 second. Sorry, Bob. Oh, all right. So while like a general rental is usually paid with money, what the chachirus is a rental, but you pay with produce instead of money. So now the thing is, if the locust ate all the produce, so he's in a bind. Okay. So Reuven is So Reuven is chachirusing. He's leasing a field from Shimon. And locusts ate all of the produce. So nishdifa, or wind blasts. It's kind of like power washing, but with wind, and not like a machine, but just it's a natural power washing, but with wind. Today they were power washing for like 3 hours. It felt like they were just kept on coming back to power wash the same thing. Okay. Hopefully it means they won't come back for a few days. Hopefully. Yeah, right. So im nishdifa, so they got power wind washed. Im makas medina, so if it's a makas medina, if it's like a general kind of situation, not specific to his field, but kind of affecting the whole area, we're going to explain in a minute what exactly that is. So menakalo min chachoro. So in that case, Reuben can say to Shimon, like, hey, you got to help me out over here, right? It's like what's it called? It's like some kind of like stimulus thing, like you have like COVID-19 or something, and it's just like affecting everybody. So we need like some help over here. So you're also, there's some kind of like makas medina over here, some general thing going on. So Reuven can kind of, you go to Shimon and say like, hey, we need to renegotiate. Im eina makas medina, but if it isn't considered a makas medina, so ein menakelo min chachoro, so then they can't renegotiate. And again, we're going to explain in a minute what constitutes makas medina. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says, Rabbi Yehuda kiblei menu b'maos. So if he was leasing it for money, remember chachirus is when it's for paying the lease in produce. But if it was being paid just a regular rental with paying with money, so benkach uvenkach menaka lo min chachoro. So the amount stays, the rental price stays the same if it's being paid with money. I feel like I'm so itchy between my nose and my beard. I keep on having to like scratch my face. Says the Gemara, Hechidami make medina. Makas Medina. So what would be considered a Makas Medina that Reuven would be entitled to renegotiate the agreement? Rav Yehuda could go into Ishduf Ruba de Baga. So Rav Yehuda says it's talking about if the majority of the fields in the valley all got power wind washed, blasted, power wind washed, blasted. You got wind blasted, power washed, winded. So the majority of the fields in the valley, this happened to it. So Ula, so then that would be considered Makas Medina. Ula Amar says Ula kigon shenishtadfu arba sados me arba ruchosel. So it says Ula. I think what it means is that if the field has 4 sides, and if the fields on all 4 sides of it also got messed up in this way, so then it would be considered Makas Medina. Okay, so Rav Yehuda says it's talking about if the majority of the fields in the valley got all messed up, so that's Makas Medina. Ula says even if just the 4 fields around this field that we're talking about got all messed up, that would be considered Makas Medina. Ula says Ula, Bobimai they asked in Eretz Yisrael, Nishdof telim echod al pnei kula mai. What if not all of the fields around it got wind blasted, but only 1 row in each of the 4 fields though? Nishtayr telim echod al pnei kula mai. What if like all the 4 surrounding fields got all messed up, but each field had 1 row that was like still okay? If Sika Beira Mai, what if like around the field directly there were barren properties, but around those they got all messed up? Aspasta Mai, what if surrounding the field there were aspasta fields? Zera Acher Mai, or what if it was a different seed than what you were planting in your field? Chite legabisorim kizera Acher dami. Olo, would wheat relative to barley be considered different or not? If we say that different has some implication. What if everybody else got all messed up with shidafon, but he got all messed up with yerakon? Or everybody else got all yerakon, then he got all shidafon. My take uchves nicht. So what if the instructions were that Reuven was supposed to plant wheat, but he had different plans? He went and he planted barley. The ishtaduf ruba debaigo, the ishtaduf nami hanachsari delay. And sure enough, the majority of the valley got all messed up, and so did his. So what's halacha? I mean, do we say the amrlei ilu zarai techite avanami mishtadfa? If Reuven says to Shimon, look, my I know I was supposed to plant wheat. I planted barley. It got all messed up. But it's not just mine that got messed up. All the whole valley got all messed up. And therefore we could presume that if, the same thing would have happened regardless of if I planted wheat or barley. So I planted barley, got all messed up like the rest of the valleys. So, I'm entitled to kind of renegotiate if we can presume that if I would have planted wheat, it would have been the same result, just like everybody else's result. And therefore, don't tell me that, well, if you would have planted wheat, it would be better. Look, the whole valley got all messed up. Dilmar, perhaps, Matzi Amar there, maybe Shimon can say to Reuven, Ilu zaraita chite, you know what? If you would have done like you were supposed to, and you would have planted wheat instead of barley, have Mekayim be, the pasuk would have come true. Vatigzar Omer veyakum lach. That that you could basically daven and it will come true. And I would have davened that my wheat, because I thought that you were planting wheat. I was praying that the wheat was going to be spared. Turns out it was barley. But if it would have been wheat, I would have been spared. So we say, yeah, that's taka how we would what we would assume that Shimon does have the ability to say to Reuven that if you would have planted wheat, it would have been spared because of this pasuk would have applied. All right. So what if all of Shimon's fields, all of his fields got messed up? And also the rented field also got messed up. V'lo ishtaduf ruba debaiga, but the rest of the valley was fine. There was some kind of weird vibes for Shimon that for some reason all of his fields, including the rented one, got all messed up. What's the halacha? Do we say do we say, well, since this is not a situation where the majority of the valley got all messed up, so therefore it is not a makas medina, and therefore it cannot be renegotiated. Excuse me 1 second, just got to flip something over. All right, it's been flipped over. Odilma, or perhaps Omar Lay, or maybe Reuven could say to Shimon, Omar Lay Hai, Mishum Lesech Didoch Hu. Look, Shimon, I understand that the majority of the valley is fine, but you seem to have terrible luck. All of your fields got all messed up. So there seems to be that seems to be your issue, Shimon. I would like to renegotiate. Where am I? So it would make sense to say that Shimon could reply to Reuven and say, if what you're saying is correct, that I just have terrible luck, have mishtayerli purta, then a little bit would have been left over, that we remain a little bit from amongst the lot. Meaning, if I was just bad luck, when the Eibishter brings, bad fortune to somebody, he doesn't completely wipe him out. He leaves a little bit left. But, he basically gets wiped out, but he always leaves a shtickle, right? Like the pasuk says, that we were a lot, and now we're only a little, right? So they aren't completely gone, but a little bit remains. And therefore Shimon says, look, if Reuven, if it's like you claim that it's my bad luck, well then something would have remained. The fact that none of it remained, it's not my bad luck. This isn't an issue of bad luck, and you have to, I'm not renegotiating the majority. This isn't Makkah Medina. Makkah Medina, I'm not renegotiating. It's not bad luck. It's not Makkah Medina. I'm not renegotiating. Now this next bit, I don't really understand. I could try to throw something together. What if all of Reuven's properties got messed up, and all of the and the majority of the fields in the valley also got messed up? So it sounds like it's a Makas Medina, right? The majority of the fields in the valley got all messed up. Now Reuven, I guess, owns a few fields, right? The sharecropper owns a few fields, and all of his fields got messed up, including the field that he's sharecropping on or renting. The ishduf nami abadayu, and right, so all of his fields got messed up, including the one that he's renting. What's the halacha? Came dishduf ruba debaiga menakele. Do we say, well, since the majority of the fields in the valley got all messed up, therefore it's a Makas Medina and Reuven can renegotiate? Or Dilma, perhaps came the Ishtaduf Kulu Arate, since all of Reuven's fields got messed up. Matzi Omar Le, Shimon can say to Reuven, Mishum Lesech Didoch Hu to Mishtadfu Kosto Secho. That Reuven is just your bad luck because all of your fields got messed up. So this isn't an issue of Makas Medina, it's an issue of you having bad luck. Mistavad Omar Le, Mishum Lesoich Who? So we want to say that it makes sense that Shimon would be able to say to Reuven that it's Reuven's bad luck. But maybe you're wondering, why should Shimon be able to say it's Reuven's bad luck? Why doesn't Reuven say to Shimon like Shimon responded to Reuven in the previous example? Imishum l'sai didi, Reuven should say to Shimon that if it was my bad luck, who have mishayerli porta, well then Epis would have remained, and that's not the case. To have Makayim be kinishanu ad ma'arbe, right? Like the pasuk says, they remain a little from among a lot. So therefore, Reuven should be able to respond to Shimon and say, it's not my bad luck, because if it was my bad luck, then something would have remained, but nothing remained. So it's not my bad luck, and it's a makkah, right? There is also the majority of the valley that got all messed up, so therefore it's a makkah's Medina. So yeah, the Gemara answers something I don't really understand what it means. I could try to throw together something. Because Shimon will say to Reuven, if you were worthy of something remaining, if you I don't know, if you merited to have something remain, it would remain from your stuff and not from my, meaning in the event that like your fields would have gotten all messed up, but like a little bit of it would have remained fine, that little bit wouldn't have been from this field that you're renting from me. It would have been from one of your fields, from one of the other fields. And therefore, I guess maybe like either way, whatever benefit you would get is not coming from my field. It would be coming from your field. So in terms of this, stick to your commitment or something. Yeah, I don't really get it. Maybe if you get it, maybe if somebody gets it, you can share that with us. All right, where are we? Meisvei. Okay, so we have a kasha on on the original premise of what I think maybe right on Rav Yehuda, who had said that if the majority of the valley got all messed up, so then it would be considered Makas Medina. So Meisvei, we have a kasha. Oh man. Okay, Meisvei. Okay, so this is talking about. Okay, so if you sell ancestral land in Eretz Yisrael, so in a walled city, in a Batei Arichoma, so you have 1 year, right? So if you own property in a walled city, in a Batei Arichoma, so you have 1 year to buy it back. If you don't buy it back in that year, so you can never buy it back. Any other land in Eretz Yisrael, so it's fakir. Not exactly fakir, but somewhat fakir. For the first 2 years, not 1 year, for the first 2 years, you cannot buy it back. After 2 years, you can buy it back anytime after that. So in terms of those first 2 years, right? So if Shimon sells a field to Reuven or whatever, so for the first 2 years, Shimon cannot buy it back from Reuven, and it's Reuven's to work. So now, Shnas Shidafon, what if, one or both of the 2 years was a Shidafon, like a wind blast year, not you can't really work the field. V'yerakon, or some other bad farming situation. O Shvius, or Shmita, when you can't work the field. O Shayu Shanim Kishnei Eliyahu, or it was like, a complete famine, like during Elijah. Eino ole lo min aminyan. So then it doesn't count as part of the 2 years. So katani, shidafon v'yerakon dumya dishanim kishnei Eliyahu. So in the same sort of teaching, we taught both shidafon and yerakon. We talked about shidafon and yerakon, right? Just like we're talking about in our Mishnah. But we're also talking about the years of Elijah. Mashnei Eliyahu dulo abi tvu klal. So in the years of Elijah, there was no grain, there was no produce at all. So we should say also here that when we talk about shidafon in the Mishnah, dulo abi tvu klal, it's talking about where there's no wheat at all. But if there is wheat, maybe not in this valley, or we're saying the majority of the valley is all messed up, but the rest of the valley there is wheat, and outside of that maybe there's wheat as well outside of the valley. So salka lei veloka aminon makas medina. So then we would not consider it to be makas medina. So we had said that it's talking about where the majority of the valley is all messed up, but it sounds like from this Mishnah that it's talking about Mishnah or Brisa that Makas Medina is when there's pashut nothing, not just a majority of the value, but there's pashut nothing. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak shiny awesome. It's different when it comes to counting those 2 years by these properties. The Omar Kra, because the pasuk says by Steachuzo b'mispar shnei tvuis yimacher lach, that by 2 years of tvua, that there has to be as long as there's some tvua, some produce, then that would count. If it's a complete famine, so then it doesn't count. But if there's some produce, then that would count. So long as there is produce in the world, so then those would count. But if there's no produce at all, then it doesn't count. So that's specific by Stei Achuza. It says Shnei Tvuis, which means as long as there's some Tvua, it counts. But that's not the case over here by Chachirus. Well, if that's the case, then Shemitah should count. Right? We had said in that brisa, so we said that Shemitah doesn't count as part of the 2 years. But why not? There is Tvua in the world, there's Tvua in Chutz La'aretz. Omar Lei, so if Kana responds, Shvius afkaita de malka he. That Shvius, the Eibishter says, don't work. It's not considered, it's not counted as a year of Tvua. So therefore, it's a non-starter. Amarle Marzutra Bre Dirav Mari Liravino Elameata Shvius lo tailalo min hagerua. Well, if that's the case, that Shemitah simply doesn't count. Well, if a person is makdish his field, and so he's makdish his field. Now his field is hektish, so he wants to redeem it. So you redeem it for the rate of a sela and a pundion, right? Sela ufundion for each year. Now those years include Shemitah years, right? You subtract how many years are left between now and what's the difference in the number of years between now and Yovel, and then you give a sela and a pundion for each of those years, including Shemitah years. But if we're saying that Shemitah doesn't count, it shouldn't count for that either. So Alam Tanam, why do we learn in the Mishnah? No sin selo ufundion l'shana. They give a selo ufundion for each year, even if it's a Shemitah year. It's included. So Omar Lei, Ravina responds, Shani Osam, it's different over there by Hekdesh Dechazya Lemishta Chaba Peri. Because, you could still kind of, on Shemitah, you can't work the field, but you can leave out fruits on the field to dry out or whatever it might be. That would be okay. And therefore, it doesn't say by hekdesh shnei tevuos. It doesn't have to dafka be growing produce. It could be, if you could use it to dry out fruits or whatever, and that would be fine. And therefore, it could be counted for redeeming hekdesh. So Shmuel says when we're talking about renegotiating the contract, that's only if he planted the field and it produced a yield, and then locusts came and ate it. Aval lozara klal lo. But if he didn't plant it at all, well then he can't just say, oh look, it turned out to be a makas medina, and therefore I want to renegotiate it. No, he would have had to have actually put in the work. The Amar Le, because Shimon is going to say to Ruvain, Ilu Zaraito, if you would have planted it, have a Makayim be Lo Yevoshu Be'Israel V'Meira Avon Yisbo. That Shimon says that, well, for me the pasuk would have come true if you would have. I know that there's this Makas Medina, but you didn't plant the field. If you would have planted the field, the verse in Tehillim would have been applied. Lo Yevoshu Be'Israel, that they will not be embarrassed in a time of evil, uvmeru avon, and in a time of hunger, yisbo, they will be satisfied. Most of Rav Sheshes asakasha roya shoya roya v'niach edro uvalo ir. No, we've seen this before. That if you have we saw this just a few weeks ago. If you have a shepherd who was shepherding, v'niach edro, and he left the flock uvalo ir, and he went to the city, and then while he was away, and a wolf came and tore up a sheep, or a lion came and trampled on a sheep. We don't say that if he was there, he would have saved it. Also, rather we evaluate him. If he could have saved it, then he's chayv. If he couldn't save it, then he's potter v'amai. Why don't we say that if he was there, he would have saved it? Namely, let the owner of the sheep that got eaten say to the shepherd, if you were there, have mekayim be, we would have applied the pasuk, games ha'ari, games ha'dov, hiko avdecho, that your servant smote the lion and the bear. So meaning if we're applying sort of these exceptional psukim in these scenarios, why not apply that exceptional pasuk there? Why are we saying that we don't automatically assume that if he was there, then things would have been different? Why not? Why can't the owner of the sheep that got torn up say, well, if you would have there, the pasuk of Gam Sa'ari Gam Ado Vika Avdecha. Mishum do Amar Le Ihavis Chazis Lisrachushe Loch Nisa, because the shepherd will say, look, if you're such a if you're a person that really deserves to have miracles, well then Avis Rachush Loch Nisa, a miracle would have happened for you. Reb Chanina ben Dosa, like Reb Chanina ben Dosa, the Masin Ize Dove B'Kainayu, that his goats were able to bring bears on their horns. So so new smart Alec, if you were so special that this pasuk would have applied to you, well then it should have applied to you even if I wasn't there. Let your goats or your sheep have come and taken care of those lions and wolves. But let the owner say, wait, 1 second. I might not be a Reb Chanina ben Dosa. Maybe I don't have goats that are gonna kill bears, but maybe epis would happen. Maybe just my sheep would have been saved. Something small like that. So Kasha, it's like a good point. Yeah, why don't we say that? All right. Tani Chado. Parmishona v'shniya zora, sushlish shein zora. Zora, one brisa, one I guess Tana taught that Reuven needs to plant the field one time, and then if the locust come, he needs to plant it a second time. Once he planted it twice, he doesn't need to plant it a third time. But Tanidach, a different brisa says shlish zora, revius ein zora. No, you do have to plant it a third time, but you don't have to plant it a fourth time. Lokasha, it's no kasha ki Rebbe or Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. It's Machlokes Rebbe and his father, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Ha ki Rebbe d'Amar betrays zimnei have chazaka. Ha ki Reb Shimon ben Gamliel d'Amar betlas zimnei have chazaka. Of course, the famous Machlokes Rebbe and Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Rebbe says that 2 constitutes a chazaka. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says 3 constitute a chazaka. So therefore, Rebbe would be the one who says that he's got to plant it twice. He doesn't have to plant it a third time. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel would say he has to plant it 3 times, but he doesn't need to plant it a 4th time. Rish Lakish says, Rish Lakish lo shanu elav shezara v'tzamcha v'ochla chagav. So it says Rish Lakish, we're talking about if he planted it and stuff grew, and then the locusts came and ate it. Aval zara v'lo tzamcha. But if he planted the field but nothing grew, Matzu Amar Le Balakarka, Shimon could say to Reuven, Kol Yemei Zera Zara. So long as it's still the planting season, plant. Zara la planted ve'azil. Is there noise? 1 second. Ooh, what's going on outside? Wait, 1 second. Oh, there's a whole group outside. Maybe my neighbor's going to yell at them. All right. Anyways, it's not such a big deal. I got my noise canceling headphones. All right. So there's Zara la ve'azil. All right. So Shimon says to Reuven, no, just keep on trying, keep on planting as long as it's the planting season. Vad Amos, until when is considered the planting season? Amr Pape says a Papa Asu Arise Midavra, until the point when the sharecroppers come from the fields. V'kaima Kima Areshayu, and at the time that they're done with their work and they come home, the constellation of Kima is overhead, and this apparently is around the time of the month of Adar. Meisvev, we have a kasher. Reb Shimon Gamliel Mishum Reb Meir Omer. V'chein Reb Shimon ben Menashe Omer. Kidvarav. Chatzi Tishrei, half of Tishrei, all of Mar Cheshvan, half of Chatzi Kislev, half of Kislev. Zera is the planting season. That's important, right? So we see that according to we're saying now that the planting season is all of, half of Tishrei, Mar Cheshvan, and half of Kislev. Done. Not the other half of Kislev, not Teves, not Shvat. Whereas our Papa just said it's all the way up to Adar. Okay, Chatzi Kislev, Teves, v'Chatzi Shvat, Choref. Okay, those 2 months are winter. Chatzi Shvat, Adar, v'Chatzi Nisan, Kor. It's considered the cold time. Chatzi Nisan, Iyar, v'Chatzi Sivan, Kotzir. That's the harvest time. We're now in for me it's Iyar. I think for you it's going to be Sivan. It is the harvest. Chatzi Sivan, Tammuz, v'Chatzi Av, Kayitz, that's the summer. Chatzi Av, Elu, v'Chatzi Tishrei, Chom, that's when it's hot. Rabbi Yehuda monami Tishrei. Rabbi Yehuda would start from Tishrei, not halfway through Tishrei. All right. And Reb Shimon would start from Cheshvan. So man Mekel Bahu, who's the one who's kind of the furthest out? Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says that you could start with Cheshvan, but still he would just say Cheshvan and Kislev would be the planting season, but already by Teves it would the planting season is over. So he doesn't go all the way till Adar. So why is our Papa saying Adar? Well, it depends what he's planting. If he's planting the early crops, I think like barley is an early crop, so then that would be up until, that would be kind of half of Tishrei or all of Tishrei or starting in Cheshvan, right? This would be the machlokas. But if we're talking about later crops, so then it would be until Adar. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says, Rabbi Yehuda kibla mimenu b'mos. It says Rabbi Yehuda that if he was paying for the lease with money rather than produce, so then there's no renegotiating. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, just that. There was a certain fellow, the kabil ara le mizra abehu tume. Okay, there's Ruvain was supposed to, right? He's sharecropping. He's supposed to plant garlic. Aguda de Nar Malka on the banks of Nar Malka Sava. But Bezuze, and he paid money for it rather than produce, right? This wasn't a chachirus, it was I guess just a schirus, a regular lease. Istakar Nar Malka Sava. But then the river got dammed, and basically there was no water to properly irrigate the field, and Ruvain got all messed up because of it. His field, didn't have the proper water that he needed. Also, the Kama de Rava, so they came before Rava Amarle, and he says to Shimon, to the owner of the field, Nar Malka Sava lo Ovid de Miskar. Look, the Malka Sava river doesn't normally get dammed. This wasn't something expected. Makas Medina, therefore it's a Makas Medina. It doesn't just affect your field; it affects all the fields downstream. Zil Nachile, so go and renegotiate with Reuven. Amu le Rabbanan the Rava, but the Rabbi said to Rava, Ha'onan Tanam, we learn in our Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Kibla Imenu B'mos, Benkach Uvenkach, Eino Menakelo Min Chachoro. Rabbi Yehuda says that if it was paid with money rather than produce, so then there's no renegotiating. Amalu, Rava says to them, Leis Dechosh La, the Rabbi Yehuda, Rava said, yeah, but we don't hold like Rabbi Yehuda, and even if it was paid with money, it can be renegotiated. New, right, Mishnah, second Mishnah of the day, final Mishnah of the day. Okay, so this is Chachirus. So Ruvain is leasing the field from Shimon, and he's going to pay 10 cores of wheat per year. Vilaksa, but the wheat that year was not good wheat that year. No saying lo mitocha. Well, okay, look. The field produced wheat. It's just unfortunate that year wasn't a good year. The quality was not great. But okay, whatever the quality is, Reuven just pays Shimon his 10 cores, whatever the quality might be, even if it's not good. And at the same time, Luyomar lo areni lokeh. Where am I? Are you chitel yofis? Luyomar lo areni lokech minashuk elenosin lo mitocha. Now, if the opposite happened, that the wheat was a givaldiga crop, and Reuven says, wait, this is really good. I don't want to now give 10 core of this wheat to Shimon. Let me go to the market. I'll buy average wheat, and I'll give that to Shimon. I'll give him that wheat, and I'll keep all the other wheat, and I'll sell it. No, he needs to pay from the wheat that grew, right? So if the wheat is not good that year, okay, so he pays Shimon from the not good wheat. If the wheat is very good, well, then he pays Shimon from the very good wheat. Whatever the wheat is, that's what he uses to pay. So there's a certain fellow who accepted, who was supposed to grow aspasta, bikore desire, and he was going to, the payment was with cores of barley. So he was growing aspasta, but what the chachirus was for barley. He was going to be paid in barley. He was going to pay Shimon in barley, not in aspasta. After aspasta. Okay, v'chorsha. So he grew an aspasta grow, a round of aspasta in v'chorsha, and then afterwards he plowed it. V'zara sairi, and then he kind of improvised, and instead of planting more aspasta, he planted barley. V'laku hane sairi, and the barley though was not a good crop. So now Reuven had said to Shimon, right? The deal was that he was going to pay Shimon with barley. But also the deal was that he was supposed to be planting aspasta. I guess he was going to go to the market, buy some barley, and that's what he would give Shimon for the payment. So I guess he figured, well, instead of going to the market and buying barley, I'll just grow barley, and that's what I'll pay Shimon with, but the barley didn't grow so good. So Shalcha Rav Chaviva, Misura de Faros, Lekam de Ravina. Ki Agav Namai, so what do we do? Ki Loksa, no sin lo mitochad. I mean, do we say that this is like our Mishnah? That look, if the crop wasn't good that year, he still pays from the crop. It's just not as good of a crop, but what can you do? That the payment comes from the same crop. So basically, Reuven would pay Shimon with this barley. It's not a great crop, but that's what he's paying. Olo or not, or maybe he kind of improvised there. He wasn't supposed to be growing barley. He was supposed to be growing aspasta. He did grow aspasta initially. The aspasta worked out just fine. He then decided that he was going to grow barley. The barley did not work out fine. So does he pay Shimon with this inferior barley, or does he have to go to the market and buy new barley? So Amar le mi dami. So Ravina says, no, this is not similar to our Mishnah. Hasam lo of the Irish lichusa demara. In our Mishnah, it's talking about where Reuven was supposed to plant wheat. He did plant wheat, and he did what he was supposed to, and the wheat didn't work out so good. So so Reuven pays Shimon, whatever the field produced. But over here, the field was doing just fine. Shimon had made up with Reuven that Reuven was going to plant aspasta. The field did just fine with the aspasta. It was only when Reuven started getting creative and decided he was going to grow barley, that's when things went south. So therefore, there's every indication that if he would have stuck to what he was supposed to do, everything would have been just fine. And the aspasta would have been just fine. It's because he did barley that it got messed up, and therefore he cannot pay Shimon with that barley. He would have to get better barley to pay Shimon. So there was a person who he was renting in this case it means a vineyard. All right, so Reuven was renting a vineyard, leasing a vineyard from Shimon. Be'eser donei chamra, and he was going to pay Shimon with 10 barrels of wine. Takif ahu chamra, but then the wine went bad, became vinegar. So Rav Kahana, the famous Rav Kahana, taught to say, Hanu masnisin, this is our Mishnah. That if the wheat is not good that year, it doesn't matter, he still pays with that same wheat. So therefore also, he would just pay him the 10 barrels of wine, even if they went bad. Rav Ashi says to Rav Kahana, midami? Is the situation of the wine similar to the situation of the wheat in our Mishnah? Over there, he was supposed to plant wheat in our Mishnah. He did plant wheat. It didn't work out. So what can you do? He did what he's supposed to. The land didn't produce what it was supposed to produce. So Reuven just pays Shimon whatever Shimon's land produced. Over here, though, the land did just fine. Right? The arrangement was he was supposed to grow grapes from the land. The land grew fine grapes. It was only later on, after he made it into wine, that things kind of went south. So Reuven can't just pay Shimon with this inferior wine that he made. Rav Ashi does admit, with grapes that if the grapes got all wormy, or after they harvested wheat and it was like in the bundles and it got stunted, that would be, even though technically the land produced fine, but then everything got all wormy or messed up, he would still be able to pay Shimon with that stuff. That was Daf Kuv Vav, Masechet BavaMetzia. Enjoy. Peace out.